Hey guys, Sarah here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing my birth story, so if you are interested in that, keep watching, and if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe before you leave so you don't miss any of my future videos. All right, let's get into it. I've shared tons of pregnancy content throughout my pregnancy, when I found out, the reactions of my family and friends, some try-on hauls, some symptoms, updates, all the things. So if you want to see any of that stuff, I will link my pregnancy playlist up in the cards for you. There's just a lot of content. And I'm also sitting in my living room, which is not where I normally film, but my little Bubs is sitting and sleeping right over there. So I'm sure that he will probably wake up at some point when I'm filming this, and so I will introduce you guys to him when he wakes up. But for now, I figured I would share my birth story with you. Before I gave birth, was not sure that I would share the story with you guys, just because I've heard so many birth stories from different friends, and I just feel like they're always negative or just maybe not necessarily helpful. So this story is crazy, but it's amazing. So I think a lot of it has to do with your perspective, and yeah, so let's start chatting about the actual day. I have some notes on my phone. I actually, let me see when I even edited this last. Okay, so he was born on June 7th. So on June 8th, like the morning after at 4:25, that's when I wrote this note in my phone of the timeline of when everything happened, because I wanted to make sure I remembered it. I want to remember everything right now, and so I've been trying to kind of keep track of it. And I actually also asked my doula to kind of write out a timeline according to her, so that I would have kind of like a cohesive timeline of when everything happened. But yeah, 4:25 in the morning, I was writing out everything that happened after he was born, because I don't want to forget anything. So on June 4th, which was Friday, well, I should just preface this by saying that the week earlier, so the first week of June, I was definitely feeling kind of weird. Like I was having more pressure and I just felt off. But I mean, there was like nothing specific. I had already had a scheduled C-section. If you are new here, my baby was breech, and so I obviously could not deliver him breech, so I had a scheduled C-section, and you might be able to hear little baby noises in the background. That C-section was scheduled for June 15th, so a week and a day after I ended up having him. So on Friday, June 4th, I had been feeling weird kind of all week, and we've been doing a lot of home renovation stuff, and Adam needed to paint our bedroom. I could not be around the paint fumes, obviously, because I was very pregnant. We did not want to do any harm to the baby, and we turned our guest room into the nursery. So we don't have any other like adult beds in our house. And so I went and spent the night at my parents' house for a couple of nights while he painted the bedroom and bathroom area upstairs, basically our entire upstairs, and he slept on the couch. So Friday night goes by, he paints, I spend the night at my parents' house. Saturday night goes by, same thing. Sunday night goes by, same thing. And I had been feeling really anxious about being, like, my parents live 45 minutes away from us. Adam sleeps through everything. I was worried that I was going to go into labor, and I would try and call Adam and he would not wake up, and it would be the middle of the night, and it was just a little crazy. So Monday rolls around, and I basically hadn't seen Adam all weekend. I knew that our time of being baby free was running out, and so I asked him if he wanted to have lunch together on Monday before I went back to my parents' house Monday night to spend the night for the last night. So he says yes. I come home on Monday morning, kind of get ready, and then I picked up lunch for us. We're sitting on the couch in here, chatting and joking around, kind of having like a little lunch date. And I knew that I had therapy at 1, and I had a little bit of work to do at the office. So I drove to my office and set everything up to do therapy there. And then I was just planning on finishing up my work and heading back to my parents' house. So 1 o'clock rolls around, sitting in my therapy session, telling my therapist that, I'm a little bit anxious about just going into labor, the whole thing that I just told you guys. And at 1:05, my water breaks on a video call with my therapist. Like all over, splashes on the floor, like soaking wet. At first I thought maybe I peed my pants, but it was like an unbelievable amount of liquid. and it was just continuing to flow out of me. I was wearing a dress. My dress was completely soaked. We have chairs in the office that are kind of cupped. The entire chair was just full of liquid. The entire floor, like you could hear the splash. It was all over the floor. And I just looked at the video and said to my therapist, I think my water just broke. And I obviously was not very calm, because if I went into labor, my doctor was very specific about if I did go into labor before my scheduled due date, that I needed to go to the hospital right away, which normally if you go into labor and your water breaks, you can stay home for a while because you aren't necessarily in active labor, unless you are in active labor. That's another story. Either way, I was not in active labor, and so I needed to go to the hospital still because my water was broken. The day before, on Sunday, I was talking to my sister on the phone, and I told her, I just want my water to break with no contractions and just no pain, and then I go in and I deliver him and I don't have to wait until the scheduled date, because I knew I was gonna be really anxious about the night before, knowing I was gonna go into surgery, just all these things. And she said to me, Sarah, that's really unrealistic. If your water breaks, normally it's because of contractions. That's what causes it to break. And there are so many women whose water just doesn't break at all anyway, and they have to break it for you. And so I was like, okay, you know. And then the next day, sure enough, no contractions. Bam, my water breaks like a freaking Hollywood movie. And so my therapist is on the other side of the camera, and she's saying, okay, it's fine. You've got hours. Like, you're not in active labor, so it's going to be okay. Who do you need to call? So I call Adam. He's working from home. And I said, I think my water broke. And he was like, okay, why do you think that? And I was like, no, just come up here. And so he came up to my office, and then I also called the doctor's office. I told them what was going on, and they said, okay, absolutely, go to the hospital, but just a heads up, because you did just eat, you're gonna have to wait 8 hours for the C-section, because they wanna make sure that the food has already passed through your system, unless I was in active labor. So I went to the hospital prepared to, just sit around for a long time. Called my doula, she doesn't answer, texted her. I had ended up calling her 3 times, and I texted her a bunch of times. I couldn't get a hold of her, and I was like full on panicking at this point. And then I let my therapist go because the door to my office is locked. And so I knew I needed to back up my computer, put everything in my bag, and then go over to the door to unlock it so Adam could come in. And so I get to the door right as Adam pulls up. It's not even in a parking spot. He just walks up. I've got my bag already, and I was like, okay, we got to go to the hospital. And he was like, wait, I thought you weren't sure that your water broke. And I looked at him, showed him my dress, and I was like, no, my water broke. We've got to go. And so he didn't even have his wallet. He didn't have anything with him because he just ran up to my office trying to help me and didn't realize like what the situation actually was because I just didn't tell him. So we came back to our house. He picked up his stuff. My hospital bag was already in my car, and I actually had a beach towel because a friend of mine recommended that I keep one in my car. So I actually put the beach towel down and then sat on that. And we headed out, stopped at the house for like 5 minutes. Adam ran inside, grabbed some stuff, threw it in a bag, and we were on our way to the hospital. We got to the hospital around 2:15. I walked in, they did the little COVID check at the front, the front door when you go in, and they said, do you know where you're going? And we said, no. I said we had to go to labor and delivery because my water broke, and the woman's face was in shock, and she's like, oh my gosh, you need a wheelchair. I was like, oh no, I'm fine. And so we start walking through, and to get to where you have to go for labor and delivery, you have to walk like along this whole hallway and up to this elevator. And I told Adam my dress was completely soaked. I'll insert a little photo here. I do have some photos and video clips that I'll insert throughout this video because I didn't vlog it, but I do have some stuff that we took and that my doula took. So my dress was completely soaked. I told Adam I felt like I was doing like this hilarious walk of shame and just dressed completely soaked and walking through a hospital, completely 9 months pregnant, the whole deal. So we get up into triage, and they had me fill out some paperwork, took us back, and told me the same thing. You know, you did eat, and so since you're not in active labor, we're going to do the C-section around 9. So I was feeling so anxious. I knew that I didn't want to be sitting around the hospital for that long. And then they kind of changed it from 8 to 9, like around 8 or 9, depending, because I had told them I ate at noon. And yeah, it was just kind of like a waiting game. They said they had a bunch of stuff that we needed to do, but they would kind of space it out since we had so much time. And so we were kind of just hanging out. My doula got back to us and she asked if we wanted her to come up there and like when I would want support. And you know, we thought we had all this time. I wasn't really in pain, but then I was thinking about it and I was like, you know what? I am having some contractions. So, you know, why don't we just have her come up here? And so we told her to come up. So we did request that she came up there. And then in the meantime, while we were waiting for her to get there, there were just a few things that we had to do. Like they gave me my COVID test. They did the Q-tip up the nose situation. And they brought in scrubs for Adam. They took blood from me. They put my IV in. So it was just kind of like random things here and there. And then my doula got there around 4:15. And then I did start feeling contractions. They weren't terrible, but I was definitely starting to feel them, which was making me a little bit more anxious. And they told me if they get really bad, let them know. But again, because I was still doing okay, they were going to wait until, you know, the 8 or 9 o'clock mark. So my mom was at work. She nannies for actually a woman who's an OB, and she couldn't get a hold of her to see if she could leave early. And so since it was scheduled for later, I was like, just come after work, like when she gets home, and I'm sure you'll still be here in pre-op with me. And then when I get out of surgery, not a big deal. So my doula gets there around 4:15, and these contractions are starting to get a little more intense. And Adam's continuing to remind me to breathe because I would start holding my breath. And then a woman comes in. You just have like this curtain in triage. So you have your little room and then a curtain. So you can kind of hear what's going on in the hallway. So this woman comes in who's in labor. She is screaming. She's in so much pain. They check her. And my doula looks at me and she was like, I brought a Bluetooth speaker. Do you want to play some music and kind of like create your own little room here? And so I said, yes, absolutely. Adam connected to the Bluetooth and started playing music so that I couldn't hear this woman like screaming in pain next to me. And then I heard that they actually sent her home. They checked her and they said, you know, you're not far enough, so you need to go home, have some lunch, walk around the parking lot, do whatever you need to do to progress, but you're not far enough for us to admit you yet. So she was in shock that she had to go home. And that kind of reconfirmed for me that I was really early on. Like these contractions were nothing crazy, and that this woman is screaming in pain and she got sent home. So I am not even anywhere close to that. Okay, my battery died, so I may have like moved a little bit, and I think little man is waking up right now. Yeah. Okay, hold on. Okay, I'm back. I fed him and we are good to go, I think. This is Theodore Lee. We call him Theo. And then Lee is actually my middle name, and so we gave him my middle name since he has Adam, my husband's last name, which will be my last name at some point when we get around to changing it. If you guys missed it, we got married last September during everything, so we postponed our big celebration, and we just had like a very small parents and siblings wedding last September, and so I just have not changed my last name legally. And yeah, eventually we will all have the same last name when we get around to changing mine. But yeah, so he has my middle name. And yeah, we are just so obsessed with him. So yeah, he is just my little bud. Okay, you want to get comfy again, don't you? Okay. Okay, you can get comfy again. I'm trying to remember where we were at before Theo woke up. But I think it was, so at around 4:15, my doula showed up, and then my contractions were continuing to get much worse. So we started playing the music, and then Adam, the second song that came on was our first dance song from our wedding. And I just looked at him and I was like, I'm way too emotional for this song. Please change it. Because I could feel myself like starting to tear up and cry, and I just didn't want to get that emotional. Okay, I'm sure you can probably hear Theo sucking on his pacifier in the background now. Anyway, so after that, I wanted to get out of the hospital bed and kind of walk around and try and get myself a little bit more comfortable, which these are things that I was not prepared for because I knew I was having a C-section, that I was not expecting to labor at all. And so I walked around, I was swaying back and forth, and then my doula started massaging my lower back and just putting some pressure on it. It got to be around 5 o'clock, and that is when my OB's shift was over, and then a different OB was coming in. My practice has 5 OBs, and so you can have whoever's on call will deliver for you if that's when you go into labor. And so the OB that I really wanted, she was the one on her shift right then, and so she was leaving. And I will say my scheduled C-section was not with her either because she was going to be on vacation that week. So I was really bummed that I ended up having to wait. They told me I had to wait until later that evening because I knew I wouldn't have her deliver for me, which was a bummer. And then there was also this woman who helped me make my birth plan. She was just an incredible, incredible human. And she had scheduled herself to be in the room with me during the surgery, during my original scheduled C-section. And she said that she would help me take pictures and do immediate skin to skin and just help me execute the things that I really wanted out of my birth. And so she came to say hi to me when I was in triage, and she was like, I'm so sad that, you know, this is gonna happen later on tonight, but you know, I picked out like the perfect nurses for you, and we've got an amazing staff. I handpicked everyone, so you're gonna be in great hands, and like reassured me. It was great. So OB comes in and she was like, okay, we're gonna check you, which they had not done. Hey. They hadn't done any cervical checks on me at all. Like not in any of my appointments, not at the hospital, not at all. And so she was like, you know, before my shift ends, I'm just going to check you really quick. And so she checks me and she said, yeah, I can feel a foot and a leg. We gotta go to surgery right now. And so, and I actually have a video that my doula took, and you can hear the doctor in the background. So I'll play that right now.
Wow.
Babe, we're having a baby.
We need to go on the C-section now, not later. The one in triage, we need to go now. I need help in triage.
Oh, Sarah, you're doing great. You're doing great. Hey, you're getting all your wishes.
Right back.
You're getting all your wishes. No dinner for you, Adam.
Anyway, that was around 5. And then it was just like a mad rush. It went from them saying they had all this time, so they were gonna like do things sporadically over the next few hours, to just an insane rush of people running around me, giving me all this medicine that I needed, just getting me prepped for surgery, Adam changing into his scrubs, just all of these things happening. And I was trying to stay calm, but it definitely was like a mad rush. And then I looked at my OB and I was like, okay, you know, am I gonna walk to the OR? Because in my birth plan, we had originally talked about me just walking over there because I wouldn't be in labor. And so I could just walk myself there, and I felt like that would make me feel a little bit more in control. And she looked at me and laughed, and she was like, absolutely not, you will be rolled in there. So I do have some photos that I will insert here. But anyway, yeah, I apparently with a foot hanging out thought I was gonna walk myself into the OR. I don't know. So they wheel me in, and I am so nervous about the spinal. And in walks the woman who helps me with my birth plan, and she said, I was in the parking lot and they called me and let me know that you were going into the OR, so I came back in and I'm going to be in the operating room with you. And I just was like so blown away that she came back into work just to be in the operating room with me. Like, what an amazing, amazing person. And so she was playing music on her phone for me and trying to keep me calm. The other nurse knew that I was really worried about the spinal, and so she was talking to me and like hugging me and letting me just like be vulnerable and like, bless you. Oh my gosh. Anyway, she was just letting me like really lean on her for the spinal. And then the anesthesiologist looked at my doctor and was like, are you sure we're gonna do a spinal? I don't think we have time for that. And my OB was like, we will make time for it. We have to. She's getting a spinal. Because the other option would be for me to be put under general anesthesia. And if they put me under, then Adam wouldn't be able to be in there, and I obviously wouldn't be conscious for it. So that's not something I wanted at all. And so she really advocated for me to still get the spinal and for them to make time to do it. So they gave me the spinal, and then they actually had to push him back up because he was already too far out for them to do the incision and pull him out. So they had to push him back up into me because he was coming out on his own terms. And so they have me on the operating table, and then all of a sudden the power goes out in the entire hospital, and it is just pitch black in the operating room. And Adam is not with me. He couldn't come into the room until they were done with the spinal and had me completely prepped for surgery. And so he is sitting in the hallway by himself, and just pitch black, everything goes dark, and I don't even know what I was thinking. I was just like, oh my God, how is this happening? And then the generator kicked back on, and they were like, don't worry, you know, we have generators. They can't just leave us without power in the hospital. So, you know, no worries, surgery will go on per scheduled. So they, give me the spinal. I'm on the table, they do the check, whatever. Adam comes in, and then they start the surgery. And that nurse that helped me with the birth plan, she was standing there by my head and just keeping me calm and let me play music on her phone through the entire surgery. The anesthesiologist was on this side of me and just completely keeping me calm, again, just explaining things to me, telling me everything that's going on. And then Adam was on this side of me along with that nurse, and he was sitting there holding my hand and just talking to me and keeping me distracted. And they took the drape down. So they have a clear drape. The drape is blue during the surgery, and then they had a clear drape, so they dropped the blue drape so that I could see him when he was born. And they just held him up, and I just sobbed. Like, it was honestly like the most insane feeling and moment of my entire life. I was not expecting to feel so strongly about this baby who was like covered in blood and bodily fluid through this clear drape, just me like touching him through the plastic, and I was a wreck. So then they like took him, cleaned him off, and brought him over to me. And as they were bringing him over to me, they put the drape back up so that they could finish the surgery, and they brought him over, and I could see him, and I was so excited to hold him and have him on my chest. And all of a sudden I knew that I was going to get sick. So I was like, I'm gonna get sick. I had a mask on, and they also had oxygen in my nose. And I know that this is probably TMI for a lot of you, but a lot of times when they do C-sections, they will take your uterus out of your body or like move organs around just because they will either be in the way, but a lot of times they want to inspect the uterus after the surgery and make sure that it's okay before they put it back in. Anyway, that can make you really sick. And so I knew that I was going to get sick, and I just said, I'm gonna puke. I don't know what to do. My hands were kind of on the sides of me, and I didn't feel like I had like full control of them. And I had a mask on, and I didn't know if I could take my mask down. And so I took my mask off of me and gave me one of those like dental suction thing, like straw things that they suction all of the water out of your mouth in. And I basically puked into that and sucked it out of my mouth. It was disgusting. But anyway, then they handed him to me, and he was on my chest. He remained on my chest through the rest of the surgery. And there was a point where that same nurse was doing this massage that gets them to cry because he hadn't cried yet, and they were a little worried about it. And the woman who was the nurse that was standing by the baby warmer, really wanted to take him. And the nurse that was advocating for me kept saying, nope, he is pink. As long as he's pink, you are not taking him. And so she kept him on me and was massaging him until he cried, which was great. Again, just like another person in my corner doing the things that I really wanted, making sure the baby was safe, but like after knowing that he was safe, not just doing whatever they wanted, like making sure that my wishes were granted, which was absolutely amazing. So after that, I went into recovery. So he was born at 5:52, which is crazy because my water broke at like 1:05. So it was a very, very short amount of time. And then the surgery ended, and I went into the recovery room, and shortly after we got into the recovery room, my mom showed up. So she came after work, and she showed up. They checked me, and then Adam held him for the first time, and that is a really, really sweet video as well.
You're gonna go meet Dad.
For a moment, very short,
I'm gonna
okay?
steal a finger from you. All right, knock, knock. All right, let's try.
I'll take care of this. There's only I'll do 5. I'm running. I just called.
What a handsome guy.
Nicole? And then room 7 delivered. Maybe 12.
Do I need to pull it?
Put it out for medication. I don't say.
And my mom met him and held him.
Who is that? Who has you?
God, you are just something. You are just something. You are.
And then we finally, after a couple of hours, they want to make sure that you're okay in your recovery room. And so after a couple of hours, they moved us into the room that we stayed in for the rest of the time. So that was all the day of. It was absolutely insane. I feel like everything was such a whirlwind. Oh, and I didn't even mention the doctor that had come in at 5 to relieve my OB called into the operating room and asked my OB if she wanted her to come in so that my OB could leave because her shift was over. And my OB said, absolutely not, I will stay and do her surgery. And so I had the one nurse that came in from the parking lot after her shift and then my OB that stayed after her shift to do my surgery. It was just like the complete dream team. I could not have lucked out more. And although it was like an absolute insane day, starting from the like Hollywood gush of my water breaking on a virtual therapy session, like I feel like it's just hilarious to, you know, not realizing that I was even in active labor. And I felt like because I had heard that girl screaming and she wasn't that far along, I was like, man, I must just not be far along. So I can't make a big deal out of this. I need to just suck it up. I'm not gonna die. So I need to just stay calm and let this go. They told me I'm not in active labor, so that means I'm not in active labor. Yeah, so it's crazy that it went from we're waiting 8 hours to just kidding, we're going to the OR right now. There's a foot coming out. Just insanity. And then obviously the power going out and my OB staying, that nurse staying. It was a crazy, crazy, crazy day. But it ended up being so wonderful. And I actually had my 2-week post-op this past week. And as soon as my OB walked in, she said that she looked at her schedule and was concerned about seeing me. She was like, I like to forget about things and not think about them. That kind of traumatized me. And she was like, so I basically just blocked out your birth out of my mind. And she was like, I was really nervous to see you because I figured that we had traumatized you. And I was just like, no, you really didn't. I mean, I feel like I had such a great birth story and everything went well. She said that she really appreciated that I just followed her lead and did anything that she wanted me to do. And she was like, had you hesitated or wanted time to think about different things, then the birth would have gone very differently and I probably would have had to be put under. So all in all, I just feel like I ended up having the dream team. It ended up being so fast and it was spontaneous, so I wasn't anxious thinking about it the night before like I'm sure I would have been. And I don't know, it was just kind of like I didn't have time to worry about everything. It just kind of all happened, and it all happened in like the best way. So that is everything that happened. And then also at the post-op, she said that she said she was shocked that I was not screaming in pain because most women at the point that I was at in active labor would have been screaming. And she was like, you have a really high pain tolerance, which is something that I've never been told. I've always been told I have a really low pain tolerance. And so I've always been really, really scared for birth. But she was like, you were in full on active labor and like not even making a big deal about it. So I don't know. I think it was just like my mindset thinking that I had such a low pain tolerance that the pain I was in, I felt like it had to be no big deal to all these other women. And so I needed to just suck it up. And I think that kind of just like made my mindset different than it would have been if I thought I had a high pain tolerance and I went in and was feeling pain like that. I would have thought I must be in active labor. So anyway, that is the story of how Mr. Theo got here. We are just so incredibly over the moon in love with him. I feel like I thought I knew what to expect when having kids because I've watched all of my friends and my sister have kids, and it's nothing that you could ever expect. It's so much better. It's so much more life-changing. It's just like the most insane, incredible thing ever. So that is everything for this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and if you are scared for birth or having a baby or being pregnant or any of that, I will do a follow-up video because I did do a video all about that, and in my pregnancy announcement video, you can see my reaction. I was terrified, but I am on the other side of it, and I feel like I have such an amazing birth story now, and I have this amazing little guy in my life, like 1,000 times worth it. Even in the worst part of my recovery from my C-section, I was already saying it was worth it. When I was still in the hospital, still swollen, like barely walking, couldn't even sit up on my own, like I was in bad shape, and I already felt like it was worth it because I just love him so much, and it was just it's the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. So highly recommend, if you are on the fence about getting pregnant because of fear, go for it. It is just insanely incredible. So that is everything for this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed this birth story. Give it a thumbs up if you did. And don't forget to subscribe before you leave so you don't miss any of my future videos. I'm gonna have tons of other updates coming soon. I obviously ended up having him 8 days earlier than I was expecting to, so there were some videos that I haven't quite finished, but I will have those up in the very near future. All right, thanks so much for watching. Bye guys.